Hi everyone, in this video I'll be searching for an LS engine for my Factory 533 hot rod. Hi everyone, and welcome to the channel about building a kit car and other car topics. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit the notification buttons below and share with others on social media. When you read up about LS engine builds and swaps from about 5 or 6 years ago, you'll see all these great deals that people got. But with the huge popularity of LS swaps, I think a lot of them have been swooped up and taken, and they're no longer super cheap. You can maybe still find a 5.3 liter at a decent price, but the 6.0s are pretty expensive. And it's also the preferred engine to get if you want a lot of power. Now, I've been doing some preliminary research and calling around, and no one in my town has one for sale. It's not that they don't show up, but one guy told me, you could wait in our waiting room at his salvage yard for a week until one shows up. Well, I have a job, so I'm not going to sit there for a week and wait for an engine so I can pick it up for $600. In this case, I might be looking at a donor car and then, just pulling the engine out and then, parting out the car. I'm not really sure. And then I have to decide how much horsepower I really want for this car. It's not about the numbers and bragging rights for me. It's about streetability, but with some great sounds and fun while driving. And there's a lot of opinions about this subject, but I know I have to kind of filter through the testosterone to get to the real answer. Because, keep in mind, this is a 2,000-pound car. So 200 horsepower is really like 400 horsepower in a 4,000-pound car. And so 800 horsepower is not really the right answer for streetability with a 2,000-pound car. Last thing I want to do is spend a lot of money on an engine and it's either too weak or it's not drivable from losing control. I need to get right into that sweet spot to where I'm really having fun, but yet it's totally drivable. And so the research will continue on that subject. So let's look at some engines and see what's available to choose from. All right, so let's check out a few engines here. What I have up here is a nice engine chart for kind of the Gen 3, Gen 4 LS engines. And they have all sorts of different engine numbers. And each one has different liters that the engine is. So you have your smaller engines, 4.8, 5.3, which you'll find in a lot of vehicles, as you can see here. Escalades, Silverados, Suburbans, Yukons. They come in a lot of different things. And the 5.3 engine is a great engine. They're all LS engines. They're great. But if you want to make some serious horsepower, not that you can't do it with a 5.3, but a 6.0 is going to give you, the ability to do more horsepower because we're talking about the area of volume that you could put the gas and air into to make that combustion. So bigger the number, the more volume of gas, air, more horsepower. So as we go through here, we're talking about LS1, which was the first engine, 5.7 liters. It's a great engine. It's in a lot of your Corvettes, Camaros, Firebirds. And later on, they came out with the LS6, which is not something I'm really interested in because I'm trying to stay in the 6.0 area. Even though these are great engines, and we'll look at some of the prices on some of this stuff. Of course, LS3, which is a newer Corvette engine, it's not on this list because it's probably a Generation 4. But the ones that you see the most of are going to be LS1, LS6, LM7 you see a lot of, 4 maybe a little bit, a lot of LQ4s and LQ9s. So since I'm trying to go in the 6.0 liter and stay in this kind of generation engine, I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on the LQ4, LQ9. Now, your LQ4s are in a lot of your Silverado pickup trucks, your Suburbans. The Hummer 2 is always a definite 6.0, I think, for the most part. LQ9, this is for your higher-end cars, so Escalades, higher-end Silverados. I think it's higher compression, a little bit more horsepower than the LQ4. They're both 6.0s. But it's built a little bit different. I think the heads are different. Just a little bit more horsepower and performance on that. So let's look around a little bit and see what we got. First, we talked about originally these crate engines. And these crate engines were all coming around, you know, $7,000 and up, basically, just for the engine, not the wiring harness, not the electronic gas pedal, not the computer. This is just the engine itself. So if we pop in here and we're looking for a complete engine that does have the wire harness and all that, and we type in, let's see, what did we do here? LS3 engine complete. You could see that without the transmission, I mean, a lot of these with 100,000+ miles on them are $8,000. And it comes complete with all the extra stuff that you need, but it's still $8,000 for a used engine. And that just seems kind of crazy when you could buy a new one for the same price. Now, let's try an LS1 engine complete just to see what we have and look at the difference in price. Now, of course, we're going to have higher mileage. Well, not too bad, actually. It's about the same, all in the 100,000 range. These are viable engines. 2,400 plus free shipping. Most of these are free shipping. Here's one with a transmission coming out of a Camaro with a 4L60E for $32.95. That's actually a really good deal considering a brand new engine, which would be more horsepower than this one, would be around 14,000 complete out the door with a transmission. The other thing you want to take note is a lot of the Corvette LS1 engines came with a 4L65 transmission, but the transmission didn't bolt directly onto the engine. With Corvettes, they split the weight of the car up, so the engine is up front, the transmission is back, and there's in the back, and then there's a torque tube going. So a 4L65E Corvette transmission is not the same as a 4L65E bolt on your engine transmission. So if we look at this Camaro right here, this transmission is bolted on the back because they don't have a torque tube and a rear transaxle type transmission. So this is fair game for my build to put into my car. But if I buy a Corvette, it has to be just the engine itself because the 4L65 is not going to work. So you can see all these prices are a little bit more than I want to spend. Let's go to the next one. So now this is the engine that I'm kind of zoning in on at this point. This is the LQ4. This is a 6-liter 6-liter truck engine with a little bit different drive system, as you can see. It doesn't look like the Corvette that you just saw on the last pictures. But the prices are a little bit more reasonable. And these are complete. It has to have the word complete in it, and that gives you the cables and the pedal and all that. And of course, you got to verify each one. But now we're looking somewhere in the 2,100 to 3,000 range, depending on what's going on. Here's a Chevy Silverado 6.0 engine, LQ4. Comes with, so this is a 4-wheel drive transmission and a 4L80. 4L80 transmission is too big to fit in my car. It takes more horsepower. It's also 4-wheel drive. I don't need a 4-wheel drive transmission, just a 2-wheel drive transmission. So this would be a bad buy for me. This is one of those things where I was talking about earlier. I could just take the advice of some people and go out and buy stuff. But until you research it and you do it, you're going to buy something like this and go, oh, this transmission isn't going to work because it's not real. It doesn't fit my car. It's 4-wheel drive, which is, not that you can't convert it, but no, don't want to deal with that. That's extra money and time. Or if I bought, let's say, a complete Corvette engine with a 4L65, and then you find out, well, this ain't the 4L65 transmission that you want to have in your car. So research is king, knowledge is power is the way I look at this stuff. So, this gives you an idea on that. Now, let's go over to the chart. So let's take some of these cars that we're looking at, and I have a better chart that I've created. So this kind of gives me all the years that this engine was in which body of which car. And so I'm going to start zeroing in on some of these, Silverados, Yukons, all in the 99 to 04 range. And see what's available just on Craigslist. And this is considering that I might do a donor. So here's a perfect example. We got an LSX 376. Now this is right from Chevy's crate engine. It's brand new, 6.0 liter. Comes with a full warranty, hasn't been used at all, $6,000. And I think if we go back here, we are looking at $7,200. So it's actually not a bad buy if you know that's what you want. And I kind of like the look of these LSX heads. That marking on there is pretty cool. Here's another example. Aluminum 5.3. So this is more of a Corvette-based engine, LS1 with an LS2 intake. LS2 intakes give you a little bit more air coming in, so it gives you a little bit more horsepower boost. Let's see, balance. All in all, not a bad buy, but you could see that there's no coils, there's no anything on this thing. There's no throttle body. I can't see in the picture if there's fuel injectors or not. Probably not. So it's missing thousands of dollars worth of stuff on here. This is just the block, the heads, and the intake. There's no drive system. There's no nothing. So not necessarily a good buy, unless you know what you want to do with it. Now, this is interesting. This is an LS1 6.0 liter for $3,800. Now, if you look at the drive system, this is obviously a truck system. This does not look anything like a Corvette. Corvette's a little bit more compact, wider. Truck engines are a lot taller. And I'm probably going to get a truck engine. But a few things wrong with this ad. LS1 6.0, rebuilt, all new pistons, cams, lifters, blah, 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 $3,800. Well, here's a few problems. An LS1 is not a 6.0 liter engine. An LS1 is not a truck engine. So here's a guy rebuilding an engine that doesn't know any information about what's going on and what this engine is actually called. You know, this is probably an LQ4 or an LQ9 engine. So I'm a little worried about what kind of rebuild was done here if the guy doesn't even know what the name of this engine is. So, and it'd be one thing if it said LS1 for Q9, whatever, then you know it's just an SEO thing where he's trying to get people interested in this engine. But in this case, guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So stay away from that. Now here's an LS1, $1,800, 5.7 LS1. That's good. 120K miles, within the range that we'd like. Ran when it pulled out, came out of a 98 Corvette. That's actually a decent engine. Not someone who's monkeyed with it. He hasn't dug into it. You'd want to do a little bit more research. You want to see if he has the pedal, if he has the wiring harness, if he has all that extra stuff. But, you know, there is a throttle body on this. All the injectors, all the coils are still underneath these protectors here. So something worthy of looking at. I'm not necessarily interested in a 5.7 engine, but that's a good buy. LS1 engine, $2,200. Pontiac, 320 horsepower. That's correct. Again, not interested in 5.7, but that looks like it might be a good deal, and it seems like it has everything. You'd want to see if it has the pedal and other things. Here's an LS2 engine. Not showing you much, but it's still in the car, needs to be pulled out. Is this engine going to come with everything, or is it just the engine? Not really sure. What happened to the car? How much mileage is on it? All these things you'd want to investigate in this situation. And that's kind of expensive. And this is a Trailblazer, so it's not an LS2 engine. It's probably an LQ4 or an LQ9. So again, someone that maybe not sure what they're talking about there. Here's one. Same engine as we first looked at, the LSX 376. And this one's pretty funny. So number 7 piston broke and the rod came out of the oil pan. I was told it needs to be sleeved as it is a steel block. Well, as far as I know, and I'm not an expert at this, but steel blocks you usually don't have to sleeve. You have to sleeve aluminum blocks, not steel blocks. Now, unless the damage was so bad that they have to put a sleeve in there because it's too close to a wall or something, that might be true, but it's not because it's a steel block that it needs to be sleeved. At least I don't think so. Again, I'm not an expert, but from the research I've done, that's not true. Crank needs to be polished, blah, 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 blah. Heads are in great. Only has 5,000 miles on it. This thing was abused, drag raced or whatever, and beat up, and so stay away from that. Okay, so now I'm looking at what if I want to buy a car, part it out, get the engine basically for free because I make all my money on the back end by selling a car. And I've really toyed around with this because it's been so hard in my city to find any of these engines pulled already in a complete form. But the only problem is I live in an HOA neighborhood. I have a 3-car garage, but I don't have any extra space and I have a few vehicles already. I don't have a warehouse where I could leave these parts sitting around, and it's going to take a year to a year and a half to slowly sell all these parts. And then after all that labor, I might give up in the middle of it because I'm just frustrated and just throw it all at the junkyard and make $300. And so, unless it's some kind of steal where like, man, I'm getting this engine for free and I'm just going to dump the rest of the truck and not try to make money on it, then that's cool. But not sure, but I wanted to kind of go through this scenario anyways, because this is the research I did. So here's a 2004 Chevy Silverado. So we are looking at an LQ4 engine. Automatic, that's good because it might have a 4L65E transmission, which I could use. 4.8 Vortec engine. So this is the baby engine. This is usually 5.3 is the smallest you see. 4.8 is the absolute smallest you can get. I've almost never seen them. Of course, maybe I'm not looking for those cars that have them. But 200,000 miles, that's a lot of mileage. It doesn't mean you can't rebuild the engine. But 4.8 Vortec for $2,500, not worth the hassle or time. The engine, you could probably find a 4.8 pulled for like $500-600. They're not worth that much money. Here's another one, 2003 Hummer 2. We know this has an LQ4 engine in it. $10,000, not worth your time, imparting that out. And it's just way too expensive of a vehicle to do that with. Here's other ones like Yukons, $4,000. Again, unless you're going to have this thing sit for a while. Here's others for $2,500, but they don't have the right engine in them. Here's one with a 5.31. It's a 5.3. $4,000. This one has 130,000 miles, which that's not bad. But again, it's too small of an engine to pay $4,000. 2001 GMC Yukon Denali. I'm pretty sure this is an LQ4 engine. It says 6.0 liter. 156,000 miles. We're starting to get a little bit out of the range of what would be nice to have, but still fully rebuildable. However, even though everything says no engine lights and all that, oil pressure is low. That's a bad sign. So that means that your oil pump is going. It also means that the engine hasn't been maybe getting enough oil, so something catastrophic might be coming down the road really quick. $2,500, I could buy a Corvette engine for $2,500, complete. So, or an LS1. So this isn't really that much of an advantage. However, if the thing is in nice condition, which it does look like it's in nice condition, maybe I could sell a door for $500 and another door. And so 4 doors, that's $2,000, and I keep a free engine, and then I sell the wheels for $100 each or something, or the tires. There's options there if you want to mess around and play with that. But for me, can't really do that. And here's one for $2,500. No check engine light. 5.3 engine. So not worth your time for a 5.3. Well, that kind of gives you all the research. As you can see, I'm kind of narrowing on the LQ4 engine, and we'll see if we can maybe find a place that has one complete. And until next time, have a great day.